Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Data Gals panel as part of Vertica Unify 2021. It's genuinely an honor for me to host this panel, and I want to thank all of the women you're about to meet from all over the world, meaning all different time zones, who are committed to helping and sharing their thoughts and their guidance as far as how they've achieved this success in their own career journeys. So, first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Joy King. I lead Vertica's strategy, product, and go-to-market strategy. I'm based in North Carolina, which is the U.S. East Coast, so it is 10:20 a.m. and not at all disruptive to my schedule here. Vertica is, I hope you all know, the unified analytics platform that powers a lot of data disruptors around the world, and we are so proud to be hosting Vertica Unify 2021 and the Data Gals panel. I do want to introduce or ask each of these ladies to introduce themselves. They'll tell you where they're located, what their companies are, what their roles are, and their connection to Vertica as well. And during the session, which is 100% live, please do ask us questions. We've got some topics that we want to discuss, but we also want to hear more from the audience and what questions or comments you might have. So you can type those questions into the Q&A tab on the right-hand side of the screen, and then we'll be able to see those, and we'll answer as many as we can to keep this dialogue interactive and engaging, and hopefully helpful and educational too. So with that, I'm going to ask each of my guests here in alphabetical order to introduce themselves. And that means starting with Amy.
Great, thanks Joy. And thanks for having me. Very excited to be here in this case this morning for me. Amy Fowler. I am based outside of Portland, Oregon on the west coast of the US. So this is 7:20 a.m. for me. We've been on this in prep for about an hour. So hopefully by now I am caffeinated and ready to go for the next 50 or so minutes. Some of you might have seen, there's been a lot of global coverage actually of the fires in Oregon, and I get a lot of questions about that. For better or worse, most of the smoke is blowing east. So I'm glad that we don't have too much haze yet, and that's about 300 miles from here. My title is I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Solutions for the FlashBlade Business Unit at Pure Storage. Pure Storage, as you might guess from the name, is a data storage company, but we actually take it much further than that. So we've been innovators in the all-flash data center capabilities, and if you looked at our website, you'd see that we talk about our goal being that we can empower innovators, which is representative of basically all of Vertica's customers and probably everyone on this call today. Certainly my fellow panelists today are all innovators. And our goal is really to make it about the data. So ensuring that with a unified fast file and object platform like FlashBlade, you can kind of make sure storage is out of the way and just amplifying and enabling, in the case of something like a Vertica Eon mode, which is our connection to Vertica, that you can have an optimized infrastructure and make it all about the data. And with that, I will pass it back to Joy to go on to the next panelist.
Okay, and the next panelist is Elena in a very different time zone.
Yeah, hello. First of all, this panel is an excellent idea and important topic to share. And I really want to thank you, Joy, and the rest of the Vertica team to arrange this. And my name is Elina Tuominen, and I'm working as a service manager in Elisa. And Elisa is the biggest telecommunication company in Finland and the second one in Estonia. And for those who don't know where Finland is in Northern Europe, between Sweden and Russia. And Elisa have existed already in very early stage in 1882. So when the telephone was just invented. And we were also the first ones to implement the commercial 5G network in the world. So most likely my voice is now very clear and good. So I'm very happy to work in Elisa because we have quite open work culture. The way of working is very easy and flexible. And Elisa have been ranked one of the top 10 best places to work in Finland. And I can see why. personally, I'm now leader of the Data and Analytics Enterprise BI team, which is responsible about the data platforms and BI tools and enabling the data and insights for business as a DTA hub. And last year, we made this huge effort to migrate our data warehouse from Netezza into Vertica. And we have 17 persons in my team, including consultants, but only 3 of them are women. So that's about me.
Okay. All right. And now over to you, Karen. Another different time zone.
Thanks, Joy. Also, very proud to be on the panel. Thank you for having me. My name is Karen Bartal. I am the Director of Data Engineering at Taboola. We are in Israel. I am in Israel. We are pretty global. Taboola, I don't know if you've seen us. I hope you did. We are a discovery platform. We are content you may like. We're on the bottom of your page when you finished reading something. We try to give you that moment of next and offer something new for you to read. I've been at Taboola for a few years. I manage the data engineering group, and we manage the storage systems for the company. We have many platforms, multiple technologies. One of which is Vertica. Vertica is pretty big for us. It is at the heart of our production data pipeline. It serves our partner API and UI dashboards. It does analytics. It's our corporate data lake. We are now starting our migration to Eon, and lots of fun things going on here. That's about it.
Thank you. And Karen, I do want to congratulate again you and your team for the Data Disruptors Award that I just announced earlier to Taboola. So that was very exciting for me as well.
Thank you so much.
Now,
we're so proud to get that.
As you should be, because that was pretty astonishing statistics that I shared. For those of you that may not know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to the Data Disruptors Award announcements that happened earlier today, because the recording will be available. And now, on to you, Teresa.
Thank you, Joy. So as Joy said, my name is Teresa, and I'm the Chief Data Scientist for Vertica Americas. I'm based out of Kansas City, but my work is global, and I specialize in the APJ region, being fluent in Japanese. So to everybody located in Japan, konbanwa gozaimashita. And what I do for Vertica is pretty unique. I am a full stack pipeline developer by trade. I've been working in the high tech sector for 25 years, and I've been a developer that entire time. I have never transitioned off the technical track, though I've had many companies try. I've been a consultant for 15 years, and I love consulting. So even in a corporate role, I do heavy consulting for very strategic clients. I specialize in extreme scale. So these are people who are processing many terabytes per second, very low latency, and these will most likely be some of the first quantum accounts when we hit that point, which aligns with my PhD work, which is in full stack quantum computing development. So the work that I do for Vertica, and I've worked with Vertica for years and years and years, pretty much since Mr. Stonebreaker, Dr. Stonebreaker, whatever you want to call him, released the product. So I'm very well versed with it, and I've grown up with it. And what I do now is I take a lot of the PhD work that I do around very, very low-level specialized artificial neural networks, and I develop pretty complex stack models. So using artificial neural nets on the bottom to flesh out the features, which we then import into Vertica for high-scale distributed machine learning. So some of these use cases could be low latency image analysis. cases. They might be natural language processing, natural language understanding, which would apply for conversational AI. And one of the most exciting fields for me specifically, they're edge-based use cases, which focus around extended reality. So think of a medical student where the teacher is thousands of miles away and teaching them through augmented reality, and they're performing surgery on a 3D patient. So things like that, exciting stuff.
That is a huge impact on the world. Those kind of things, it makes me so proud to think of the impact that all of you are having. Now, as part of that impact, we're going to talk about how you got here. And the first question that I want to pose, and I'm going to answer myself, is what's one of the biggest challenges that you faced in your technical career path, specifically due to your gender? Because let's be clear, we all face challenges as we go through career development over the years. Not all of it is related to gender, but some of it is. In my case, I started in the software space, and I started in sales, but in a very technical sales role with a company that will date me by saying I started my work with Digital Equipment Corporation. Yes, Digital Equipment was then acquired by Compaq, which was then acquired by HP, which then split into HP and HPE. Yeah, it's been a long, long journey. My biggest challenge was that my manager at the time told me that the buyers that I would be engaging with were men. He was right, they were. And he said, I'm worried that they won't take you seriously, that they won't trust you, that they won't believe that you could have the knowledge they need to make informed decisions. He told me straight out it was because I was a girl. That's what he said. I don't think he was meaning to be disrespectful or in any way, negative. I think he just was saying what he truly believed. And I actually did understand what he was saying. But for me, it was insulting a little bit, but then it was a challenge. I was determined. I was really determined that I was going to prove him wrong. And that meant I had to spend a lot of time learning all the acronyms, as many technical phrases and knowledge as I could. I actually spent, courtesy of digital, 6 weeks at MIT learning as much as they could pack into that time about computer science. And you know what? I was able to prove him wrong. And I was a top performer in sales at Digital with the men who trusted me enough to buy a lot of VMS-powered machines in those days. So for me, that was the challenge. It wasn't that my manager was being disrespectful. He was just saying what he believed to be true. Now, I think, Amy, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, because you, similar to Digital, which was mostly in the hardware business with, of course, operating systems and such, you're in a similar space at Pure Storage. What's one of the biggest challenges you faced, especially earlier in your career, specific to gender?
So I, Joy, I followed a similar career path to you. And actually at the time I started off with, right out of college with EMC, which is now part of Dell. And I was there for 14 years. And, I've been at Pure Storage for the past 8. So I have some, let's call it recency bias relative to, frankly, being with a company that I think stands out as being really, really dedicated to, diversity, inclusion, and ensuring that, women have an equal opportunity. The types of conversations you're describing could have happened much earlier in my career, but today that's not what really is as much top of mind. I think, most of us, to make a generalization, have that, needing to prove something, and not just the feeling of needing to prove something, but the reality is that there's a little bit of a need to be that much better in order to be considered kind of on par. And I think for me, that's actually very motivating, even though I wish that's not the world that we all lived in. Of course, we don't want to have to work so much harder. And to that end, I'd say these days, especially in the past 10 years or so since I've had children, the biggest challenge ends up being the day-to-day additional, burden's not quite the right word, but the amount of additional work outside of the workplace. Because at least at least in the United States, there is still a significant imbalance. Even if you have, if you're lucky, as I do, to have a partner who is very committed to co-parenting and participating and helping with the laundry, it's still not the same. There are many studies that back this up. Women spend so many more hours a week on not just taking care of the children, but planning the children's activities and making sure they get where they need to go and making sure there are groceries in their refrigerator. And it's just a lot. So the amount of total hours that it takes for me to do both of my jobs just simply adds up to more than my male colleagues for them to do both of their jobs, even if they are very active, engaged parents, at least on making generalizations on a macro level. So it's kind of cliche to say finding balance or whatnot, but it is, I think it's more than that. It is simply keeping up with both the competitive and challenging nature of my career and feeling like I'm doing a good job and staying on top of all of the other things, which just simply add up so many hours a week. So that's, a reflection of both the company I'm at, where some of those challenges, like you're just are not as much in play for me right now, and which is where I'm in my personal life as well.
That's exactly right. And I do think your point about being motivated, like you can take that double burden and make it a negative, or you can take it and make it a motivation. I can do this. I will tackle this. So Karen, what are your thoughts about this in terms of the greatest challenges? And I think it's also important to point out that there's differences in different cultures and different countries. I'll give a sneak peek to the audience that when we had our little dress rehearsal to get together and chat with each other, that's one of the things that we learned a lot. And that was certainly true in Israel.
Yeah, so first of all, I can relate both to what Joy said and of course to what Amy said. I think I actually admire you two for talking about these challenges. I think there's a lack of role models generally for women. And I recently heard a saying, if you can't see, you can't be. And another reason for this panel being so important. I see I got some network issues.
No, we heard you just fine. But yes, keep going. But honestly, see it. If you can't see it, you can't be it. I love that. So that is a very important responsibility we have. So tell us a little bit about what are some of the challenges you've faced.
So, I mean, not seeing female role models is something that that is problematic. When you see a woman behaving a certain way or responding in a certain situation, might usually be a little different than how a man would. And women and men are perceived differently in the way they behave and react in these situations. So. And while they want to achieve the same thing, they might go about it a bit differently. So it is important to see. It is important to have that point of reference. And being for many years in the industry, while I had wonderful role models, both mostly men, but very few women, it's something that is definitely lacking. There's just not enough of it, and not only that, I think that it's not enough to have one woman, in your company being a senior manager. You need options. You need, you need to pick the person, to find a person that you can really relate to, and be your mentor. So that's a big issue that I see.
I think you have just made a really important point there, Karen, is there are many companies, let's be straight, that say, oh, look, we have a woman on the senior leadership team, we have a woman on the board, but that's not enough. We all have to not just see somebody who's a woman, but see somebody who's a personality that we can relate to. And that means more than one. So that's a really, really good point. Now, I'm going to ask Teresa about her challenges, because Teresa is quite a well-known and famous contributor in the open source community, in the machine learning space, and I read some articles not too long ago which really horrified me when I learned how the code that women produce is scrutinized at a much different level than their male colleagues, and that was really, really frustrating. So I'd really love to hear from Teresa specifically about how she overcame, or if she experienced, doubt about her coding skills at the level of technical depth that she brings to the table.
Well, thanks, Joy. So that is, I have to tell a personal story in order to really express the gravity of that answer. So I started consulting when I had the technical prowess to be able to consult. And so right out of college, you don't know anything. You know, you learn from books, but it's not real world. It's just like colleges teach R. They are a programming language, which is fine. It's great. R is a tremendously powerful programming language, but that's not what industry uses. Industry uses Python. So when you get out of college, you are armed with the wrong programming language more often than not. And so that just gives you a little background that you have to learn how to be a consultant. And it's everybody's dream when they're young. You want to fly over the world. It's glamorous. You aren't tied to a desk. It's everybody's goal for the most part when you're young. And it was mine. So when I finally had developed the skills to be able to consult, it was back when I was cool. Well, we'll just put it like that. I was an Ironman triathlete. I was young. I was fit. And I would walk into the jobs on Monday after spending 8 hours on a red-eye flight. I would show up around 11 or 12, and I would be greeted by an all-male staff who would instantly do a double take. And it took me a long time. I couldn't figure out what the problem was. And I would have to prove my ability to do the job for the first 2.5, sometimes 3 days. And these are 5-day contracts. I fly in on Monday, I fly out on Friday. So sometimes as much as 3 days are wasted by me just basically proving I can do the work. And I didn't do a lot of long-term contracts, usually 2 to 3 weeks at most. But one contract was several months, and so I got really, really well acquainted with the team. And I finally told him, I just don't understand. I lose 3 days just showing that, I am a full stack developer. I do, know how to transition from one language to the next, and I can build exactly what I say in the amount of time that I say I can build it in. But I have to end up working around the clock the last 2 to 3 days of the week because so much time is burned needlessly at the front part of the week. And they said very frankly, they're like, well, we don't have consultants walk in the door that look like you. And they said, which I found astounding, but it was accurate, and I wasn't offended because then it hit me that okay, that actually makes sense. It's they're dealing with all men, so when a woman walks in, they truly don't know what can she honestly do what she says she can do. So it took a long time, and eventually what I found out is the less people knew about my gender, the better off I was professionally. So you will find almost no code out there by my name. In fact, you won't find anything about me unless you know what you're looking for. I maintain my privacy. I maintain very tight control over my privacy because even 25 years later, gender's first. And this is an unfortunate thing with women in STEM, so the science, tech, engineering, and math fields. We start out strong. Right out of college, I will look around the office and I see lots of faces that look like mine, young, fresh, eager. And as we get older, there's fewer and fewer of us out there. And it took years for me to figure out why. As more and more of my peers were leaving to have families, they either weren't coming back or they were coming back in completely different roles, roles that are less demanding, and so I think that, that's definitely something that I'm very passionate about. Is in 25 years, I've never reported to a senior technical lead ever. Ever. It's always been men. Men have always been my role models, for better or for worse, because it took a long time to learn that I can't act like, these male role models. I get labeled different, and so, I hope when my daughter is in STEM, cross my fingers, she won't have the same battles that I grew up with. Just as, my generation didn't have the battles that my grandmother's generation had. So I think with time, everything eventually works itself out.
Well, I think that what you just said is why we're here, because we're making a difference. We're giving women if you see it, you can be it. And I am so, in some ways, so glad that that nobody knew about you, Teresa, so we have you at Vertica. But now you are too famous to say that, so everybody knows Teresa Melvin. I'm just telling you that is the case. Now, to pivot to a positive, I do want to say that I do think we talked about this, that there are actually also advantages for gender in roles. And Alina, this is something that we talked about when we got together the first time. What's been an advantage for you, especially in your role in Elisa? And you might also mention some of the advantages you have in Finland, because I was so impressed. So much so that I'm really looking into whether or not that's my next location.
Yeah, I've been just listening to you, and you're like wondering that where do I live? Do we live even the same world? Like sometimes, because those stories that what you have said, that they are quite desperate. I think somehow that I would want to still highlight this what Amy said there earlier about this when you're a parent and problems related to that one that women makes a lot more of these homeworks and things like that. So it's also like on the top of your own work, and because in Finland I think that the biggest challenge is related to this maternity leave. But now when I think about it, when I hear you, I think that it's an advantage in Finland, because in Finland we can have that. You can have almost a full year, the first year with full salary, and then the second year with really good social security benefits. So you can stay with your kids at home for quite a long time. And if you make those kids grow, like couple 2, 3 or so, you can end up being at home for 5 years with a really good benefits. So it's an advantage to be in that position, but also challenge, because then you need to somehow, if you're a long time away from the office, you need to somehow update your skills and keep everything updated. And of course, technology field is going so rapidly up all the time that it's hard to update yourself all the time. And then that the organization will remember you during your absence. So it's a quite complex also. But I would say that maternity leave is an advantage in Finland. But then I heard that when you have in America, you have only, like you said, 6 weeks or something. So I would never, ever could think that I would bring my 6 weeks old kid to the kindergarten, or that would be a nightmare. I wouldn't even thought about or think about it. That wouldn't be an option for me. But so that's. But then about the advantage of being a woman in technical role, I really love it, because I have now in my team like this 3 women only out of 17, so less than 20% are women, and I have been always working with the men. Like I've been mostly my role has been more or less technical, so all people are guys. And someone has compared gender differences with drawer. Like men has 2 lockers. They have a upper and lower locker. And on the other hand, then women, they have quite many lockers, and when you open one, there will be popping out and one secret locker behind that, and I think that woman is a quite complex machine, if you can say so. So when I have been working with the guys, it's more that they don't really care if you don't have makeup or you don't you will have some kind of funny shirt or so. Most likely they will notice only if you show up nude in the meetings, or you have shaved yourself a bald headed or something. So it's it's irrelevant things. They don't concentrate on those ones. So they really concentrate on work. So I say that I love that. So I can be more open and be myself, like, while working with them. And in some cases.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
In some cases, I have wondered also that would someone say the same things for men, what they say to me, in good way and in bad way. As a team leader, I think that maybe my team can open up more about their personal things and feelings for me than if I would be a man. Then on the other hand, I have been, when I receive some critical negative comments, then I have been thinking that if I'd be a man, would they have said those things to me? Because most likely not. The man would have probably punched them already. So I don't know. These kinds are advantage.
But that I think those are both advantages to your point, because what you're saying is whether it's negative feedback or they're more open, they trust you. They're more open. You really know what's going on. It's more of an honest dialogue. And honestly, for me, I'd really just like to know what they're thinking. And if it's not good, I want to know. I don't want it to be hidden from me. So I actually like that as an advantage. Both, are they saying it to me just because I'm a woman? It doesn't matter. If that's the truth, I want to hear it. And so that's a good thing. Now, we have, as I expected, we definitely have a lot of questions coming in and some votes on some very popular questions. So I'm going to start with a question that I think we all knew were going to come in. And I'm going to start with you, Karen, on this one. How do you feel about sessions like these? Do they energize you, or do they make you angry or embarrassed? How do you feel about things like women in tech?
Well, to be honest, I'd much rather talk about technology than about my experience as a woman in the field. And I don't like the women to have these sessions, but I do see the value in them, and I am proud to be here. So, there's that.
That's exactly right. Amy, what do you think about that? How do you feel about sessions like these?
I mean, I completely agree with Karen. Like, it would be great if this was not a necessary topic, but I do think that it's important. And I think, whereas I think earlier in my career, I would have just wanted to kind of stay to the side and just not, I don't say not deal with it, but basically kind of like, let's just get the job done and not talk about this so much. But over time, I realized just how important it is to, those of us who have the platform and have gotten through to the more senior levels to really not just look at things neutrally, but make sure that we're counterbalancing some of the downward pressure that comes from our gender with, paying closer attention to ways to to show the whole idea of, you can't be what you can't see. Like, we're all here. So I'd say I'm very glad we're doing this, even though I wish we didn't have to.
I think that's the quote for the day. I'm really glad we're doing this, even though I wish we didn't have to. That's a very good quote. So somebody mark that down. We'll get it out of the recording. Now, Teresa, this next question I think is actually a really good one for you to take a stab at, followed by Alina. How can men in tech, particularly men who are not in a role that can affect hiring or culture direction, be more effective allies? Now, I personally will tell you that everybody contributes to culture. You don't have to be in HR. So that's an important point. But what would you say about how can men can be more effective allies in helping women like you?
So I guess I'll answer it first. I have worked with tremendous men. In fact, I've only ever really worked with men. I don't know that I can think of one, maybe two female colleagues that have worked at the same level that I have, and our careers have developed together. So for the most part, I've always worked with men, some better than others, but the ones that I enjoy working with the most are the ones who they don't see a gender. Like there's no gender. All they see is code. All they see is work. Are you doing the work? Are you not doing the work? If you're not doing the work, why are you not doing the work? And that's all I want. That's all I care about. And I think it kind of goes back to the previous question is I'd rather talk about code than stuff like this.
Yeah. Karen, I think, said that too. She'd really be talking about the tech. Alina, what do you think? What do you feel like men could do who want to make this no longer necessary in the future?
I would now say that Finnish men are doing what they're supposed to do, because I have this one example that when I came back to work when I was a couple of years away from the work, I was over 40. I had two quite little children, and I was thinking at that time that no one would hire me, because I had those children, and they knew, all this hassle, what it is, like when you take them to the kindergarten and etc. They are sick all the time or whatever. And I thought that I would never get hired. And I applied for 5 jobs, and I received 5 job offers in 1 week. So I would have got all those jobs which I applied. And I was really surprised that they really hired a woman with that age and with the little children. So I think that we don't have these kind of so that's a good example that they didn't think about me as a woman with the kids. They thought that, oh, that person is good for this job, she can do this, instead of that gender.
That's that is another inspiring Finnish point of view. So Karen, what do you
Come to Finland.
I am definitely putting that on my bucket list. As I told you earlier, after Iceland, which is the next, hopefully, international trip I get to make. I love the cold, and you have to show me where the snow is in Finland. That's really important to me. So, Karen, what do you think? What's your thought?
I think there's lots that men can do. One of which is, in reference to what Amy brought up in regards to maternity leave and all that. I think men can take paternity leave and set an example. In Israel, it's according by law, men can split maternity leave with their spouse, and some women take 3 months, and then the men take another 3 months, and that's very impactful. That it's incredible to see, and that's just one thing that they can do.
Well, that's actually a really good point. Yes.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Also, just share the burden. I want to see. I mean, I do see men leaving work early. Having days that they leave early, taking the kids out and whatever. But another thing, not in regards to kids, my manager, there are a few things that he does that are specifically aimed at women. One of which that I only caught on recently is that when there's a room full of people, it's always the men talking louder, and then sometimes it's a little bit harder for me to sort of interject. So whenever he notices that I'm trying to say something, he quiet the room and just have me speak. So it's just an amazing thing that he does without me having to ask. By the way, it's just something that he notices, and just be sensitive, just be aware.
Well, that's good guidance in general for leadership, because regardless of gender, we have many people who aren't comfortable interrupting And some people talk with commas, that's what I always say, and no periods. And others wait for periods before they believe it's time for them to talk. And a good moderator or leader in a meeting recognizes that sometimes you have to stop the comma talkers in order for the others to be able to feel comfortable talking. So it sounds like you have a very good manager in that respect, Karen. I would agree with that. So I'm going to take us all through one last question. Well, we'll see how it goes, and then ask you all to think about the kind of advice or sort of the last words you'd like to leave the audience with. But there are a few more questions. Hopefully we can get to maybe one or two. One of the questions is, have you had really great mentors in your careers? And has that made a difference? And there's a follow-up to that question about whether or not having those mentors being women made a difference to you. So who would like to volunteer to take that question first? I'm going to weigh in on my point of view, but I won't be first. So Amy raised her hand. She gets to go first. What's your thought there?
So first of all, I think there's an important distinction between mentorship and sponsorship. And so mentorship is very important, but mentorship is not necessarily about someone who can get you to the next level. And I have had, I would say I've had mostly male, both mentors and sponsors, but it is absolutely the sponsorship that has been key to getting me where I am. And so this is a subject that there's a decent amount of research on, that women are sometimes over-mentored and under-sponsored. And so finding that person, whether it's a man or a woman in your organization who has the actual ability to advance your career, and where you can have that win-win relationship where you're willing to go out of your way and help support them and do more, but they're actively advocating for you in, review meetings and, really looking to spotlight your successes in your work. For me, I've been extremely fortunate to have, especially over the past almost 8 years, just a fantastic sponsor. And that's made all the difference in the world. So yes, I think mentorship is important, but I think sponsorship is more important.
I will tell everybody who's listening that that was something that I hadn't really thought about until Amy mentioned it. And honestly, I think sponsors are something that we don't talk enough about. So thank you for that, Amy. That was really, really important. Anybody else want to make a comment about mentors before we pivot to the next question? It's definitely an important topic, but it's the sponsor idea is really powerful. We have another question that I think is very important that I bring up, and that is, what about women of color? Because there are a lot of barriers in the world, and gender is one, but honestly, we've made more progress in many ways than women of color have made. So what can we do to help with that? Because to me, that is probably, my answer to that would be, we have to shine a spotlight more on successful women in tech, women of color, and then we get to Karen's comment about, if I can see it, I can be it. So that's a lesson for us all to think about for the next Data Gals panel too. I also like the idea of getting involved in the community to share success and encourage women of color and girls especially. Teresa, what are your thoughts there, especially in true deep STEM code work? Are you seeing enough focus on girls of color in younger generations?
It depends on the country. So in this country, I don't see near the focus that I see overseas, and I think there is considerably more that can be done. And there's all kinds of she-coder camps and programs for young girls, but there's very few girls of color in those programs. And I think that's something that the community needs to figure out, how to address that, how to get more young women of color into those programs. Because it starts young. I mean, I got bit by the coding bug when I was 8 years old. I ripped apart the brand new Commodore 64 my dad brought home, and I never looked back. And that's you got to start them young. And I think we need to figure out how to make that happen.
I think actually that's a great story, and I've heard that from a number of colleagues who said that they started very young on that journey. Yeah. So with just a few minutes left, I want to go around the panel and ask you sort of for those last comments, and that would be sort of about what's one piece of advice, lesson learned, or last words that you'd want to share if it was your daughter, your niece, your sister, whoever, or just a young woman in your company. What would you want them to hear about what it takes to be successful in a truly technical role in today's world? So let's start around the alphabet again. That means A for Amy. You're up next.
So there's a fine line here, but I would say that when you need to be authentic, right? You need to be yourself, and you need to. Ideally, you can find an organization where you can bring your whole self to work. Because whether it's, when you start thinking about all the stuff we've been talking about today, and especially, Teresa was talking about this, not having, especially a variety, if any, female role models, and then kind of realizing I don't want to act like a man. So I think that, finding a way to be your authentic self, people like your authentic self more than they like the trying to be someone else. And so as challenging as it may be, I think that's something that everyone should strive towards.
Okay, moving to E. Elena, you're next. What's the last words you'd like to leave, guidance for your daughters or sisters or nieces or young women in the industry?
My piece of advice would be that be prepared to read a lot of manuals and make a lot of different experiments and learn from those and form your own opinions. And don't hesitate to ask from the best and share your thoughts. But remember that there's always someone who knows better than you.
It's a constant journey to learn. Don't be afraid to ask. That's good feedback. Karen, what would you say?
I think my advice would be to take risks. For women to take more risks, to have the guts to take on a big project and fail miserably. By the way, it's better to do and fail than not to do at all. And women tend to be more shy about these things. So just there's less to lose than you think, in my opinion, or more to gain.
Being shy about joining a panel like this, and still we did it.
That too.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, and Teresa, we only have a minute or two, so what do you think about that last lesson that you'd like to leave with this audience?
Well, I'm going to leave them with exactly what I tell my 5-year-old daughter every single day. If you want something, then you need to embrace the suck and you need to earn it. And basically that just comes down to set a goal, see it through. It's going to hurt. But you're going to learn how to build resilience, which is how to deal with stress, how to cope, and you're going to fail, and there's nothing wrong with that. Success leads right through failure, and the most important thing is never quit. So once you quit, you're done.
Well, I think this is all really great. I'll leave the audience with my own lesson or comment, which is I believe in mentors. I now believe in sponsors. But one of the most powerful things for me, and these ladies have now been added to my list, is what I call a ventor, not just a mentor. Somebody that I can truly express my thoughts, frustrations, questions, and concerns. Now, there are 3 rules to mentors. 1, it cannot be your spouse or a family member. That crosses the personal and professional line. It also can't be your boss, no matter how much you trust him or her. And it must be somebody in your industry, in your work environment, that can understand what you're talking about, so you don't spend all your venting time explaining people, acronyms, and organizational structures. So I do urge everyone to look for trusted mentors, because a little bit of venting can put you back on the path to achieve all of the things that Karen and Amy and Elena and Teresa have suggested. And we're all here to help, not just for this panel, but going forward. So we're available on LinkedIn. I'm sure some of us available on Twitter. I promise that even though Teresa hides, I will help you find her. So thank you all so much for joining us at the Data Gals panel. And honestly, this isn't the last. I wish it was, because I wish it wasn't necessary. But it is, and we'll be here so that you can see it and you can be it. Thank you very much for joining us, and also for joining us at Vertica Unify 2021. And hopefully we'll see you in person in 2022. Right here at Save the Date, Vertica Unify 2022, exactly what I meant. Hopefully we will see you in person, and for those of you that can't join in person, we will extend the digital experience as well. Thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed Vertica Unify 2021.